Nathaniel, welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for having me here. I'm absolutely excited for this time.
I'm excited to have you on. I love learning more about people and having people on here when we talk about dreams, living bigger, how to expand. I think that's our sole purpose. If we looked at like the DNA of our soul, that's what we do. And
Mm.
I'd love to have interview, and I'm looking forward to sharing this space with you. So thank you again for being on. One of the first questions I always like to ask, and just to have people, get to feel a little bit about you, learn about the story of your life. How did you get into what you're doing? Is it that straight line kind of a path, or is it that pinball effect that happens where you wanted to do this, and things came here, shifted you here, kind of went there, and then you did this little dance to figure out what it is you're doing for the world?
Absolutely. Well, it's kind of a stock market life, I would say, describe it that way. Yeah, I actually have a really big story, but I want to make it as short as possible. So I was about 1 year old when I was diagnosed with an incurable chronic illness that affected my own kidneys. I lost my own kidneys with about 1.5, 2 years old, which meant like I had to go to start doing dialysis treatment in order to survive. There was another huge step back that I had with about 3 years old, and I was in a coma for about 2 weeks. And the doctors called my parents to come into the ICU to terminate my life because they told them, hey, there's all we could do so far, but there's nothing else we can do right now. And so please come into the ICU. My parents come to literally farewell my life. And the moment they turned off my life supporting machines, I started to talk again. All of a sudden. And that was a huge miracle for everybody. Of course, I didn't recover um, from one to the next day. It took me about a few weeks to fully come back alive and be restored. But interesting thing was I didn't have any, even though it was declared that my brain was basically unfunctional during the time of coma. I had no damages whatsoever. The only thing that happened was I lost my part of my hearing because of the side effects of medication that I had to take. That was actually everything that came to damage. Um, the, I still was on dialysis at that time. That meant like every night I had to do that back home at that time. And then all of a sudden, when I was about 5 years old, we had a little hope, a little light in the long tunnel. And the doctors called and they told me, hey, or my parents, um, we have a kidney ready for me, which meant like, well, okay, a kidney, which meant like I would have the opportunity to be away from dialysis and to live a normal life again. But that kidney only worked for about 24 hours before it got destroyed again. Um, there was a huge setback. I didn't, well, of course, I was about 5 years old, so I don't remember all the things there. I just know that there was another big change at that time when we had to change the kind of dialysis treatment, which went from being home to going to the hospital 3 times a week in order to survive. And I had to do that all the time. I had to drive 1 hour back and forth to the hospital 3 times a week, and that was a huge challenge for for my family as well, for me. The best thing that came then was when I received, or my family received another call when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I had my second kidney transplant. And it was absolutely the dream because that kidney worked for about 2.5 years. And imagine the first 7 years of my life when you have you start to learn everything what a 1-year-old boy learns with 1-year-old. And so I started to learn about going out, trying to do hobbies, meeting with friends, going to kindergarten and school, as well feeding myself. 2.5 years later, a huge setback again. My kidney got destroyed, and for 2 weeks, like in a transitional time, I realized that I have to go back to my old life. And my kidney was the best friend for me, but I had to let that go. And I fell into a huge depression. For 2 weeks, I didn't eat, I didn't talk anything, even my pants come up on and on again. And I almost didn't move at all. All I wanted to do in my mind was to take my own life. Somehow, my family and myself are people of faith, and they ordered pastoral care into a home, and something shifted within me in that time, because I realized that emotional, the physical, and as well the spiritual strength is slowly coming back, and I had to accept it. On one hand, I accepted the situation to go back into my own old life. On the other hand, I had no choice. And so I continued living that life until up to 11 years old, when I received my third kidney transplant, which only lasted for about 30 months. And the interesting thing was, in that time, with 11 years old, I realized more what life is about. And I realized that, well, I still have everything that I have everything that I wanted during my childhood, but I still don't have everything that I need. Something was missing. So I started to believe that no matter what's happening, all things will work out together for the good somehow. And unfortunately, that kidney got destroyed again with 13 years old, and that was back in 2001. Since then, I'm living full time, I would say, on dialysis 3 times a week. I had a couple other depression and burnout along the way. I had about 40 operations the past 3 decades of my life, 4,500 life-saving treatment, which I call dialysis. And by the medical prognosis, I shouldn't be able to talk, walk, and should be dead 6 times by now. And I realized when I was about 23 years old that this story had to go out into this world. And as well, I realized that that no matter what's happening below your brain, there's always a change to change something, because we still have the mind. And I think the mindset is something, the mind is so powerful. It's why I become a victorious mindset mentor along the way. And I love to see how whatever happened in our life, whether it's a family situation, a relationship situation, whether you are hit by a chronic illness or another illness or a business breakdown, if you have the opportunity to develop a victorious mindset and turn oppositions into opportunities. And that's what I do today, inspiring people as inspirational speaker, as well helping people develop a victorious mindset.
That's such a powerful story. I mean, what an upbringing. I mean, the a challenge after a challenge after a challenge, and then some hope, and then broken back down, and back on your, falling back on your back, getting back up, hoping again, falling back down. I mean, most people would have given up a long time ago, and yet you're still persisting forward. You said you're still on dialysis right now, right?
Yes, I am, since back in 2001.
And that's very stressful on the body.
It is. The a lot of people ask me that, and I think the, the way I on one side I had the blessing to learn it early on to fight. Um, Today, like I mean, I often say life is like a game. If you don't keep fighting in the game, then you're out of it. And it sounds hard, but it's actually true. But the cool thing is that on the other side, if you keep fighting, if you keep persisting, um, the benefit will always come. I'm a big believer into whatever you sow, it doesn't matter what, you will reap. And of course, it's hard in the moment to fight, and especially when you see other people flourish in the way you want to, but it feels like you are stuck. A big mountain is before you, and you have no tools to climb that mountain. And I think that's really hard. But what I realized, and I would love to encourage you to in we as again, it's I think it's a matter of the mindset, the way we make the choice. We can make the choice to really focus on the situation, which leads us into self-pity. We see the negative thing, we see the things we don't have or we cannot do. Or on the other side, you can look at on the positive things that you still can do, that you still have, the gratitude that you can develop. And all those things in the positive side, what I realized are actually a huge momentum, because it helps you to build up expectation and hope. And the choice is not easy in the moment, of course, but it's so worth to make that decision. And it's not a one-time decision. It's a everyday decision that we have to make in our life, whether we go into building up the momentum of a better future, or we throw into the negativity of self-pity, of what we don't have or we can't do, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. What was there, was there like a story or something, a mantra or something that you were telling yourself as a kid going through those moments that kind of kept hope inside, kept something within to keep you moving forward in some way, shape, or form? Like, what substance did you hold on to, or what did you do to get through those very challenging and dark moments?
Great question. I remember up to 11 years old, it was mostly the parents that helped me to fly and carry me through the pain. But then when I was 11 years old, especially 13 years old, when I lost a kidney, I realized that I got to hold on to believe, as I said earlier, to that all things will work out to the good. And this is something that I made my daily choice to focus on, because I realized that the bigger the pain, the bigger the purpose, and we all know what's happening when the, the the cool thing is that we can make a choice. We don't have to stay where we are or who we are. We can't choose how we grew up or where we grew up, but then what following we can always choose, because that's the cool thing of having the mindset that we have, because I remember still today, like every day, it's a choice between, do we want to choose the long term or the short term decision? So the short term decision means like we make a decision based on what we like right now. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be good for the long term. And so the Yeah, I think that's something that I was holding on to in the time. Not just that one, but also really um, realizing that this was giving me a lot of expectation of a better future and giving me the momentum to keep going.
I love that. And obviously you committed 100% all in, because you said, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, you should have been dead 6 times, right?
Yes, according to the medical report.
And yet you've proved them wrong, right? How has that been inspirational for you? Because for me, I know I had some setbacks in my life, nowhere near what you went through at all. And I love how you brought up the whole, the deeper the pain, the better they say that the harder the pain, the more the pain, the bigger the gain, or bigger the pain, the bigger the purpose, or the more the pain, the more you are going to be able to help others, right? I wrote a book called The Walk in the Dark, and I talk about how the deeper you go into the darkness, the more light you're going to be able to experience and share, right? And was there times in your life where you looked at it and at others and like, man, they have it easier than me? I don't understand. Like, you had that self pity. Did those thoughts, did they come in? And if they did, how did you break through that? Like, did what's your story about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not an exception on that because nobody is. For me, it's difficult to explain the moment. I always had that tension between throwing into self pity and keeping moving on. But the reality was that the more I went into the side of self pity, I realized I was losing strength. I was losing. I was losing. It was like a endless spiral, going down, always going down. So I had to really, still have today at some point, to really be careful that the further down you go, the more difficult it is to go into the other direction. And it's still the same today. But today, as so many experiences, I know that the moment talks of negativity come, I really try, and it's hard work. It's crazy hard work to memorize and try to reflect on all the good things that happened. I think gratitude is one of the best self-pity killers um, because it shows you all the good side that already happened. And and then the next step is to build up on that, to think about, yeah, okay, I'm so grateful for the past, but now I'm living in the present. What is there in me or around me or with me that I'm grateful with or that I'm happy with? And then of course, we all know, or we all have at some point realized that slowly the strength comes back to keep going on. And then we again can focus on the future to say, okay, what I'm going to do with what I have right now to multiply it, or what can I change in order to get even more out of this spiral of self-pity and negativity. And I think that something that I learned, and I want to give it to you.
I love that. I love how you bring up gratitude. I think I talk a lot about gratitude on this podcast, and I always share about it. And it's because it's that one place you can go to when you really get into gratitude. And I know you can with your history and everything you've went through. But we all have things to be grateful for, and it's the one place you can go where you can have happiness, appreciation, right? And appreciation is gratitude, but where you can't also experience anger, frustration, or resentment at the same time. It's a beautiful thing, because when you really tap into gratitude, you are in the present moment. You are in this place of looking and going, wow, even though I have all these challenges and I have these obstacles, I can look back and I'm like, but look at the beauty of what it's taught me. Look at what I've been gaining from this. Look how it's helped me evolve. Look at all that. Would you say that everything that, and I love asking this question when someone who had like a health issue, because this is like, if you don't get your health back, that's it, right? You can lose a business, you can bounce back, you can do those types of things. With health, if you don't bounce back, there's nothing else to turn. You get what I'm saying? Would you say that everything that's happened in your life has been a blessing for you and something that you've actually can take as more now as appreciation as you've gotten older?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's a great word, appreciation of the things that you still have. And I said earlier, like, um, you can lose the health, but as long as you have your mindset, as long as you can decide to not choosing or be impacted by the limitation in your body, then you have already won on a certain point. And that's what I love, because that's what I said in the beginning. You can lose everything from below your eyes. But yeah, I mean, it's so many people out there that inspire me as well. They they are even worse on in their body than myself, and they still have a big life, living a big life. And I'm wondering what that I I'm wondering, like, the values that we live, like, is it we are often drawn to so much things that we can gain or buy. But in fact, when we really think about life, it's so many things that we have to choose that are already there, like gratitude, love, hope, um, joy, peace, and all that stuff. Things that we cannot buy. And I think that when we choose those valuable things, we have such a fulfilled life and an unlimited life to live in the future.
I love that. So why do you think then? And I think you shared a little bit of this, but I want to just ask this question. It's been as I've been talking with you. What is the reason why then people don't like live their dreams, live life like a kid, and why do we get so caught up? I know you brought up material stuff, but what's the from your experiences? Why do you think that is? Why do we don't live the dreams and live the life that we want?
Yeah, mostly there are three things I would say: fear, comparison, and low self-esteem. And I think that are probably the three most um, we all struggle with, because the fear doesn't allow us to get out of the crowd that we are living in. Because as soon as we go out of the crowd that we are living in and want to do something different, um, we there's opposition, and we don't like opposition. Like, I think I never met somebody that goes up in the morning and say, oh, okay, let's come opposition. The second thing is comparison. The reality is that, so we are unconsciously or consciously, we are so focused on other people instead of living our not our own way in a sense of selfishness, but our own way in a sense of living out our potential. And again, this is comparison always tells you what you don't have, what you cannot do, and what you are not. And the third thing is low self-esteem, which I think is the more confident you are in yourself, the better you can get out of the crowd to do something different, to live your unlimited potential, to make something different, to change the status quo, to live above average. And those three things are the most common things that I realize, especially in my life as well in other people's life mostly. But again, it's you still can choose what you do with those three things, and they are all changeable. And I think that's the thing why most people struggle with getting out of living out their unlimited potential.
Couldn't agree more with you. I think in the society we live in today, right? We got COVID going on. People are paralyzed with that alone because, do you fear it, not fear it? But we look at what the governments are doing and they're in a fear state, right? They're reacting, they're locking down, they're shutting down. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just, there's a lot of fear going on in the world at the moment. And it's one of those things where I will look at that perspective and be like, okay, what's on the other side of fear? When you faced your fear, what was on the other side of that when you got there? When you had a fear, you went at it, you challenged it, and then the other side, when you got there, what was there for you?
Great question. It depends. For me, it's always the dream, like, or the potential that I'm living. Especially a great example with the government, because fear often is in a sense very limiting. Like we think like, oh, okay, the government tells me something and I have to be like that. But you can tell yourself that, again, it comes back to really knowing who you are, to having the confidence, to ask yourself, who tells me to be like that, or to be something that I don't want to be. You know what I mean? And I think it's in the first place, again, it's a short-term decision, because fear, it makes you comfortable in your own walls, and that's where you get stuck. That's where you feel, okay, for the moment, it's great here, it's amazing, it's a short-term decision. But in the long term, what happens is that when you are influenced by fear, or people tell you what you have to be or do or have, then you never get out of that wall, and you will be stuck forever in that wall. And it saddens me a bit, because I often see a lot, not a lot, but most of the elderly people that I meet today, they have had the best health. They flourished in a really great environment, in a family, financially, but they are sad. They have no fulfillment whatsoever. And it really makes me sad, because I would rather right now make the decision to step out of the fear than living a life of regret and living a life of fear in the future.
I love what you just said there. I think I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it with my parents. Massive potential can do so much, but yet they're not living to that potential. There's a huge disconnect, right? And my heart goes out. I've seen it before. I grew up, I come from an Italian family, very Italian culture. And it was one of the things I learned is you learn from the elderly. You learn from the people who are older. You talk to them, get to know them. And I did that. And I was always fascinated with the stories, but it was interesting. It was very few to slim who were actually living that, like that smile, that you could see it in their eyes. Like they're just living, they're being them. And a lot of times it was the opposite. I see as you get older, I would see more bitterness, or I'd see, things that they haven't dealt with really throughout their life. And they had their health, like you said, right? And I think you have a better view than anybody else because of what you went through, in your childhood, and that, and you look and go, I'm curious, do you do this? Because I know I would, if my life was that, I'd be like, you have your health, you had all these opportunities. Why not, take advantage of them? Like, do you ever feel like you want to just smack them across the head sometimes?
Yes, come on.
Yeah, like, come on, wake up. What are you doing? You have all this greatness. But, it's like the saying goes, I don't know if you've ever heard it before, but, the richest place in the world is not someone who has all the money. You can take all the money in the world and accumulate it to one person, and that does not equate to the graveyard. There's lost potential. There's lost ideas. There's lost things that just never been fruit, they never planted the seeds.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can individuals then be able to change the course, change the narrative? Because I know I see a lot of people, and being a coach myself, just like yourself, you can see where people aren't, you can see the potential in them, even when they can't see it. But how can people, what are some things that they can do to potentially turn the corner, start living their dreams and doing what they want to do?
Great question. Yeah, I would say, first of all, spend time with you more than you do right now, and figure out who you really are. Because the more you spend time with you, the more you figuring out what strength, passion, and values you have. The second thing is about ask yourself, let's say the next 6 months, or let's say until end of the year, ask yourself, what are you here for? Like, what 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 are you living for? What are you here for in this world? Who, like I'm sure each one that is listening today could reach at least, I speak in faith, 10,000 people with something that you have that nobody else has. And let me tell you that you have unique strengths, passion, and values in you already. And you might have some passion and values and strength might be similar to others, but the constellation of those three, that's only in you. And there's some people are out there that need you. So ask you a question, hey, what am I here for? And then the third step, I will say, look, take those 3 steps, or like the 2 questions as well, the three main elements of the strength, passion, and values, and create a dream. Play around with those words. If you have a dream of, if you have a passion of being generous, or if you have a value of growing wealth, then play with those words. What could I do with that? What is something that other people do already, or that I can add up, or what is something that nobody else has ever done? Could be. It's a big question, but yeah. And the fourth thing is like just keep the track on that. Develop the mindset. Develop the go from a victim to a victorious mindset every day. Choose to do that and focus on what is in you, the strength, passion, and values. And I think it was Joe Maxwell that once said, like, if you do something every day for 1 hour, you will be an expert in 5 years. And that's what I love, like success, or whatever you call it, unlimited, living out the unlimited potential. It's not a one-day process. It's really a everyday decision over a course of a certain time, And what I love is to how much impact it has. Let me say, for example, you read 1 book a month, when you learn 1 thing from a book, you have 12 things a year that you can change. And add this to your strength, passion, and value, how you can change something, how you can develop that. And this is the way I have had the best success in my life.
I love how you bring up the 12 book thing, because in society now, in the entrepreneurial world, they're always about read as 50 books, 60 books. An average CEO reads 52 books a year. And it's like, I like the principle, what you just shared, small and consistent, right? Read 12 books a year. Take 1 thing from the book, even if it's just 1, you got 12 new things you learned in that year. And that's been my philosophy, because I was a guy who used to read 80 to 120 books. I did it for like 3-4 years straight. And it was great. I learned a lot of things, right? I knew a lot of knowledge up here, but then there's the application of using that knowledge where it was very limited. And then I got to a point where I'm like, I'm going to go with it with interests me. I'll still read, 15, 20 books a year, maybe. But I'm going to take whatever I read and learn it, study it, and implement it. And then once I've implemented it into my life, then I'll start to the next one and continue going that way. And I like how, again, you talked about consistency a lot. And I think that's a huge component. You know, a lot of people think of the big dream, right? Like, look at you. You every day you were you are living proof of that. And that's why I appreciate, you know, I appreciate you sharing your story so elegantly and going in full detail, because you're proof that can small things over consistent time can be a successful thing. You've cheated death 6 times based on the medical world, right? I always say if you're going to cheat death. You know, that's the only time I ever recommend cheating. But it's one of the things where you had to make a choice. That's the thing I want to bring up here, and I really want to emphasize. And I'll let dive in more to this, but you had to make a choice every single day for your life to see something different, even when the world was not showing that to you. Even when you were looking for the sunny clouds or the sunny sky, and you kept seeing the storm come. I mean, you kept experiencing the storm, but yet you kept choosing that sunny day is going to come one day.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has been a big blessing for me over the last 3 decades to every time oftentimes when I'm in a good season, then I forget all the good things that happen, and I'm really become, again, I compare with other people. I want more, or I become very ungrateful. I'm like, all that stuff. And so oftentimes there's a correction into, I call it the spiritual correction of taking myself a little bit away to really settle down and to reflect on the good things that happen. And that's what I love. Reflection, again, as well, is one of the big things that I haven't done for many, many years, but it's actually very incredible what it does. Because you can have 100 experiences, but not learning from anything, or you can have one experience and you learn from that and reflect on that, and it makes the whole difference.
I think that's a huge nugget of wisdom right there. A lot of times I used to be the type where it was all about the experience, right? And I was always a person who was very introspective. I would look within, feel something, understand it. So I took my time with it. But it wasn't until I got a little older where I started to take an experience and say, I'm going to soak into this as much as I possibly can and get as much as I can about it to help me thrive. And I think that piece of wisdom there is so critical for massive expansion, because especially in a day of society today where we have less extension spans than what we normally do. I mean, our attention span as a human being right now is less than a goldfish. Not that exciting. And so we're always looking for the next thing, the next attraction, the next stimulus, right? Instead of how do we center ourselves and get more centered within and take an experience, learn from it. Do you practice reflection? Do you have, like, I know you brought it up a little bit. Do you practice reflection on like a certain time basis now? Did you bring it back into your life in a certain way?
Right now I'm a bit in a low mood life where I just reflecting a lot and learning and letting. Sometimes you just have to let it flow and not to change anything, because I think often we are so drawn to being independent that we want to do everything by ourselves. But for me, it has been a huge learning point that my life as well, other people's life, are depending on something bigger than themselves. And I realized that in my life because I should been sick, dead 6 times by now, and I've been in coma a few times. And when you are there, you can't do anything by yourself. So there has to be something bigger. And for me, it's just great how, for me, I call it God, which is a full relationship that I have with Him, and I oftentimes I tell Him, hey, now it's your turn to do the things that I cannot do, and it gives me so much relief to not. I believe that He planted the dream and the unlimited potential into my life, or in anyone's life. And if He planted it, then I'm not the only one that have to do something. And so right now I'm in I don't know how long that's last. I'm expecting for that, that somehow it's going to be, let me tell you that, like the last 3 decades, it has always been like that. In the beginning of a new decade, I'm now turning about, in 1.5 months, I'm turning 32. And always in the first 2-3 years of the new decade of my life, it has always been a quiet time. I don't know why. But then after that, I was like, my life exploded. Doors went open. I had opportunities that I never could imagine or pulling up by myself. And so this is kind of one of my low mood mode season that I'm going through.
And it's okay to have them, right? It's there for a purpose.
Absolutely.
It's there to help you grow, right?
Absolutely.
And I think we have those in seasons, right? I don't want to say seasons like, the earth shifting seasons, although that does actually have an influence on us. But I think where there is a process in our life where we need to have those lows to appreciate the highs. And then when you get to the highs, be appreciative of the low that got you there.
Great.
That makes sense? What I have to ask this question: what is the vision for your life when it comes to your health? I mean, I would assume you have a dream to eventually have kidneys to function for you.
I do have many dreams.
I'm not shocked at all that you do. I am not shocked at all.
Okay. Do we have another Howard?
I figured you're gonna. This is like the whole show off, but what is it? Just when it comes to that, right? Because this is something that you've had now. And again, I just love this because, in a sense, just your story and how authentic you are, it allows for people to see like you're gonna face struggles. I mean, you had the gift of one kidney didn't work out, another kidney, 2.5 years, and then you had another kidney come, and it was a 13 months or something like that, right? Yeah, and so all of a sudden you had 3 times where it was like, I hope, and not. Two questions are going to come out of this. One, you have a hope for another one, and your vision on that, and then 2, how did those situations teach you to let go? Or maybe I should switch those questions around. Let me go with the first one. How was those experiences in your health and everything teaching you to let go and trust God more, or just trust the universe, or trust whatever you want to call it? And then we'll get to the second one after.
Yeah, you said it already. I'm really trusting God because I think it's let me tell you that I'm so limited, or we all are limited by in our own humanity. We are so fragile, and we have seen that by the corona, what's happening. I mean, it's a virus. You can't even see the virus by your eyes, so it's very small. So you know what I mean, like, so, and everything turned around. And for me, it's just like God is for me. Yeah, he has it in control. I'll let it go. If I don't know how to do it, I'll let it go. It's like a son-father relationship where you are together all the time, do crazy things together. Sometimes the father does more, sometimes the son or the daughter does more, and so yeah, that's my what I do.
I like it, and I mean, you had to learn. I mean, you were kind of more forced by the hand to trust and just say, "Well, this is what I can do. I can make the choice." Right? You did the work on that part, but then I was like, "Okay, I leave it up to the rest." And so, real quick, I know you have an ebook. You mind sharing what that is and just a little bit about what that's all about?
Yeah, sure. So the ebook is about all the 4 steps that I talked about earlier. Who am I? What am I here for? Create a dream and develop a victorious mindset. And so this is all about helping you getting. I call it the 4 step to unlimit your life. So the interesting thing, the word unlimit you doesn't actually exist in an English term. So only the unlimited. And I was thinking like, well, if you have something unlimited, then it's already happening or it's already happened. But if you choose to unlimit your life, then it's already in you, but you have to, you have to take it into action. And I hope those 4 steps will help you. You can get a hold of it if you want it for free on my website, nathanieltilbrook.com, my personal website, or my business website, unlimityou.co. Get a hold of it and see how you can use it. And I believe it will truly help you to make the first steps.
I love that. And it's all about, the unlimit you. The way when you were talking, I'm seeing in my head chains being broken, right? Because I truly believe we live in a prison in one way or another in the mind to a sense, and we always will be in one, but it's just the level of how big or how much you want that prison to keep breaking through. Because there's always barriers and obstacles we're going to face. There's always a wall that we're going to hit, but it's how do we say enough? Okay, these are the limits. These are my bars. Okay, how do I break these now so I can go even further? So right before we wrap up here, I'd love to just appreciate you taking the time, but can you share just how people can get a hold of you? I know you shared the website and so forth. How about on social media or any other ways people can get connected with you, or the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me also on Facebook. I think it's Nathaneal Tilbrook. Yeah, that's the name. And yeah, it's got so many names. And LinkedIn as well, Nathaneal Tilbrook. Yeah, that all on each part, like Facebook and LinkedIn, as well my personal website. It's
Awesome.
my first and last name.
Awesome. And I'll have that all in the show notes for the listeners. But Nathaneal, this was an honor to have you on. What a story. You have a very powerful story. And I firmly believe I wrote a book on this and talk about a walk in the dark. And it's one of the things where, going through these hardships that you went through in life. And it wasn't by choice. I mean, you 1 year old, you started this. This is a journey that you were smacked right on and had to go with it. Is powerful. That story alone can transform so many. And you've already inspired me with your story and how you just kept moving forward no matter what. And you had a dream and you're like, I'm just going to keep going. And you had to let go. You had to trust the process. I know there was fear, there was worry. You had the extreme version of what many humans go through. And you have such a powerful story to share. I look forward to continue to see your massive success in helping individuals light up their life, to understand the power of who they are so they can live their dream, so that all of the players in this game called life can truly help transform this life to higher consciousness, higher light, and so much more.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. And let me say one more thing. Keep going and never ever give up, because it's so worth it.
It's so worth it. It's so true.